Every major abstraction in this show, we see something. Kaufmo's collapse plays out in the pilot. Jax's entire breakdown fills the last 20 minutes of the finale. But there's one abstraction the show built an entire episode around, referenced constantly, and never actually let us watch happen. Ribbits. And once you notice the gap, you start to realize it wasn't an accident. It was the whole point. Let's be precise about what the show does show us, because it's easy to misremember this after watching the finale once. We get Jax standing in a hallway looking at Kaufmo's crossed out door icon. He turns and sees Ribbits also crossed out. His face goes somewhere the show never quite lets us read. Then we cut to Jax hiding, actively hiding while something is rampaging through the circus off screen. We're told it's her. We never see it happen. Later, near the very end of the finale, there's one shot. Ribbit's abstracted form, calm, contained, swimming in the aquarium alongside Kaufmo and Jax. That's it. That's the only time we ever see her after it happened, and it's after everything's already settled. Compare that to literally every other abstraction the show gives real weight to. Jax's happens on screen, slowly, across an entire episode, with a full sequence of what his mind looks like as it comes apart. Even Kaufmo, a side character in the grand scheme of things, gets an actual visual moment of transformation in the pilot. Ribbit gets none of that. She gets a door, a crossed-out icon, and a single calm shot of the aftermath. Here's what makes this interesting instead of just an animation choice. Ribbit's abstraction isn't a minor plot beat. The show forgot to visualize. It's the emotional hinge the entire Jax storyline turns on. Everything about who Jax becomes, why he pushes people away, why he can't let Pomni in until it's too late, traces back to what happened to Ribbit. So why would the show build so much weight onto an event and then refuse to show it? One answer is right there in the structure of the story itself. We experience almost everything through Jax's perspective, especially in the finale, where Pomni is literally inside his memories. And Jax never watched it happen either. He was hiding. He made himself absent from the one moment he was most responsible for. If the show is filtering memory through Jax, then the gap isn't a mistake. It's accurate. We don't see it because he didn't let himself see it. There's a recurring idea throughout the show that darkness calms an abstracted character down, while light and exposure make them violent. And we see this explicitly, both with Queenie and Kinger's flashback, and again with Pomni using a gun to shoot out the hallway lights so she can approach Jax safely. Ribbit's rampage happens entirely in that unseen space. Off-screen, in whatever dark corners of the circus Jax was avoiding, the show never brings a camera into that darkness for her, the way it eventually does for Jax. Jax gets rescued from his own dark corner. Ribbit doesn't get a rescue scene at all. She just gets found eventually and quietly moved to the cellar. That asymmetry says something. The show gives full visual weight to redemption. It doesn't give the same weight to the person who never gets a redemption arc at all. Look at how Jax behaves around Ribbit's memory after it happens. He makes Ragatha promise never to say her name again, not Kaufmo's name, not Queenie's, specifically hers. Kaufmo tries to comfort him the exact same way Ribbit once did, offering to talk if Jax needs it, and Jax responds by verbally tearing into him instead. The same defense mechanism that drove Ribbit away in the first place. He's not just grieving her, he's actively refusing to let anyone approach the subject at all, the same way he refused to approach the room the day she abstracted. The show's refusal to show us her abstraction mirrors Jax's refusal to look at it himself. Structurally, the audience is denied the same thing Jax denied himself. That's not a gap in the writing. That's the writing working exactly as intended. By the time Pomni enters Jax's mind in episode 9, we finally get a version of Ribbit's story. But notice what form it takes. It's a memory, filtered through Jax, shown as a flashback to their friendship and the conversation that ended it. We get the emotional lead-up in full detail. We get the argument at the snowy summit, word for word. We do not get the abstraction itself even here, even when the show is finally willing to show us everything else about Jax. The door was crossed out in episode 9 of the original run. The full context wasn't given until the finale. years later in the story's internal timeline. And even with all that time, the show still chose the same gap. Everything up to it. Nothing of the moment itself. That's not an oversight that slipped through two different creative periods of the show. That's a boundary the writers decided not to cross, twice. The Amazing Digital Circus shows us plenty of suffering. It doesn't shy away from abstraction as a concept, or from showing characters in genuine pain. But there's exactly one moment it consistently declines to show across the entire series. And it's the one moment the story's main character couldn't bring himself to witness either. Maybe that's the most honest thing the show ever did. Some things don't get shown because showing them would mean pretending we understand something the person closest to it never let himself understand. Ribbit doesn't get a visualized ending. She gets a closed door, a crossed-out name, and a friend who spent years refusing to say hers out loud. That's not a gap in the story. That's the story.